This thing's on. We're just 25. Abrams, may we have the roll call, please?
Yes, Madam President. Mr. Bacon,
Present.
Mr. Baoki,
Present.
Mr. Costa,
Present.
Mr. Fosbrink,
Present.
Mr. Lawrence,
Present.
Ms. Lewis,
Present.
President Martin,
Present.
Mayor Porco.
Here.
All present, Madam President.
Thank you. Is anyone here for public comment? Okay. I won't be reading this and I will move straight into the committee reports as I don't have any president's remarks. Operations and policy, Mr. Lawrence.
Thank you, Madam President. On the two things, we recommend accept the resignation of P.D. Marshall from the Arts and Culture Advisory Council to be voted on and put this meeting through December.
Any comments or questions?
Second.
Oh, thank you. I did that last time. I'm so glad you did that.
I thought you made a motion. That was good. Sorry, as I said, I'm old and cranky, everybody else.
That's okay.
Spelling success.
Just throw it out, Rick. It's all right.
I'm gonna third it. How about that?
All right.
Second thing is you did receive a copy in your email of a proposed resolution which was originally passed by Swissville. I believe a resident came to the president of the council interested in this, and a member of council, and the member brought it up. So we talked about Austin policies, and our feeling was this would be a good time for the council to decide if it wants to do anything. The resolution is just that, it's a statement, it's a policy statement. It's not an ordinance, it's not, has no legal standing, it's just the council making a statement. It's kind of a borough form of refuge, I don't know. Quickly, I guess what we could do is, it's really a couple options, three options. You could decide as a council, you do not want to consider it or vote on it in the December business meeting, because you think it's a good idea. You do want to vote on it in the December business meeting, because you think it's a good idea. Or you could say, well, let's give it a month or two and perhaps address it in the coming year for the organization. So with that said, would everyone like to have their thoughts?
I'd like to support this and think it's the time to do it.
And there's
I agree wholeheartedly. We have lots of pockets. I don't know about Forest Hills, but throughout the region of immigrant and refugee population, I think we should support them.
I agree with it.
I'm sorry? Yes, Mr. Papier.
Yeah, I think if we're gonna do this, we need to include, this doesn't seem to relate to ICE, but CBP as well.
Okay.
That's the order. Yeah,
It's all under ice.
yeah, we're all separate.
Well, it's all under Homeland Security.
Yes. We're all three separate agencies,
Yeah.
so we don't dig close.
Anyone else, Mr. Beckett?
I agree with everyone, including Mr. Bailey. I think it's worth, covering all bases that if it is a matter of security and police working full skills, that's what our officers are here for, and we are not doing unsolicited bidding of federal forces that make our residents uncomfortable, that we do not have to legally assist with.
Anyone else? Mr. Potter?
I agree, and I think I may have been one of the people that brought it up within Oxen policy. The only thing that I will ask is it possible to hear from Chief Williams, his opinion? Because that's one thing we haven't asked Chief Williams' opinion.
Well, all I can say is that we can't interfere with their activities. They are federal law enforcement officials, have the law on their side, so beyond that, no.
Thank you, but I support it.
I support it.
All right, looks like this very, I'm sorry, Mr.
Just in looking to then move this forward, based on the responses from council, because I would ask either if they have other, if there are other pieces, we can certainly just modify what Swissvale has to customize it for us, but with our name and their blessing. Are we comfortable with the instructions that it also gives as policy for the police to not, as Chief Williams said, they can't interfere, but not to voluntarily cooperate in the other pieces of this, or do we need to dig into it deeper? I don't know how deep, if everyone has actually read all the language before we go forth and put it up for a vote, potentially in a week.
Mr. This was, you benefit response?
Yeah, I don't think anything in the language would conflict with, the chief's statement, that is, they aren't going to interfere, and we're directing them not to voluntarily assist. I think those are very similar statements, so, I'm good with the language from that perspective.
Okay. Yes, Mr. Bacon?
Just considering that we are about to swear in a new mayor, Beaver City, our focus thoughts on this if he feels otherwise. This is, police related matter. I feel maybe we should wait until January to actually vote on this so that our new mayor can have some sort of input on this, given the relationship with the police.
Mr. Bacon, she's the one that sent it to us from Swissvale, so there should be your answer.
Well, say that.
Well, then do you want to wait until she can, I think maybe that's a question for her.
I'd like to argue.
Why
that
wait?
I-
She'll be happy when she comes in and we've agreed to it already.
If we're confident with that, I just wanted to bring it up.
I'm going to exclude our incoming mayor from that and say, I would like to vote on it. So if we can do it before the end of the calendar year, I would like to vote yes on it.
Okay.
Sounds like we have a consensus to put on December business meeting. If Mr. Corbel believes there's anything else needs to double check, you could pass those along to the manager. Okay, as far as I know, that includes operations and policies. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Lawrence. Moving on to finance, Ms. Lewis.
Other than, and I think it's under a little business, I don't have anything that's not related to the budget.
Thank you. Moving on to borough property then, Mr. Bacon.
Thank you, Madam President. So first item, which we've discussed in the committee, the potential removal of exercise equipment from Forest Hills Park. What this is specifically referring to is basically a request from the Garden Club regarding the set of bars, I don't know really what to call them, that is right next to the granite grade. There are several other sets of sort of an exercise circuit around the park. That all are in decent shape, and we didn't really see a reason to actively remove. But these ones at the front do kind of impede on the garden that they're trying to expand at the front, and they seem to be the kind of least useful ones. So we wanted to bring this to the full council to decide whether we want to remove those in a preferentially non-destructive way. So if we really want to use them somewhere else in the park, that could potentially be done so, but I think the main question is, do we want to vote on removing that? President Martin?
I just wondered if, because I often wondered why nobody was using those, and I thought, oh, maybe it's because it's right by the road and nobody wants to have somebody looking at them. Would it be possible if they were removed in a safe way, careful way, that they could be somewhere else? It's just a question, that might be a factor, but I'm for it,
I think we did discuss that, and that it might be nice to kind of encourage more of these, maybe in a centralized location in the park. Because they're kind of spread out awkwardly, and it is a nice thing for like adults and everyone else to be able to, engage in. Kids are running around, etc. And I believe we have a general understanding from an engineering perspective that it would likely be possible to put them somewhere else, but would require space, if you'd like on these path and real, but worth. I mean, it's essentially the cost of the whole one, there might be in fact save cost, but digging up at the ground needed, like I said, and appropriate statement.
Yes. Yeah, I think it's working.
Well, thank you.
Any objections to moving that forward to a vote at the meeting?
No.
All right. Our next item is a piece of extremely good news in my opinion. Which is, it is a two-page, 69. Contract number 25 that is the pool, room, and also equipment, renovation did. Here's the things where we initially did a bid that came back way over the grant that we had, and we now have a viable bid. That is within the amount of money that we have. Mr. Rec, would you mind giving us a summary, please?
Yes, we did hand out the bid report section and copies for everybody. When we rebid the project, we broke it into base bid. And then 4 add ornaments. First add ornament was the epoxy floor coating. The second add ornament was the exterior balcony painting. Third add ornament was the sound system. And the fourth was the family restroom and janitor room in the center of the facility. We broke that out as a separate cost. The current bidder is FMS Construction Company. Base bid was $515. $75. Add alternate 1 was $15,000. Add alternate 2 was $8,500. Add alternate 3 was $13,800. And add alternate 4 was $49,740. Seth had provided a breakdown in his report as far as motions under this section, and he recommended earlier today. When looking at the numbers, he's correct. As far as what we could afford to do based on the grant, which was did $650,000 in the grant, and you could award the base bid L 1, 2, and 4, plus pay for the engineering out of the grant. To give you to then a couple $1,000 of 650. So that I would agree with Seth on the recommendation for. Council would consider as a regular.
And to clarify, add alternate 3 is the sound system, which out of all of those items, I think is kind of the most separable from this. Literal concrete in some cases work. And could be addressed in the future better than the other ones could be. Do we have any other questions or comments from council?
This is a side note, this contractor we've worked with quite a few jobs. They do primarily this type of renovation work for municipalities. So they've done some very good work with our communities.
Okay. All right, sounds like we're going to move this to the business meeting for a vote. We discussed a little bit, it would be nice if we could get it done tonight, but we're just kind of pushing the envelope in the other ways, and this is a lot of money to make sure we feel good about, so. I think we're still good to get it done in time, but we need to make sure it happens at the December business meeting vote. And as far as general report, the steps going to Cook Park and Woodside are still in progress. They're doing concrete with Woodside, hopefully truly done soon. Do we know if the asphalt portion of the Woodside or not? I haven't been able to check.
They do not have that completed yet. They're still using that for access in and out. So I did include some photographs to show significant amount of the work is getting completed. Third or fourth Woodside later than forming finishing up tomorrow. I think 35. They are progressing nicely.
Unless there are further questions, I can please start with that.
Thank you, Mr. Bacon. Moving then on to planning and zoning, Mr. DeCrosta, anything to report?
Just a general update on the group that we formed through the planning and zoning committee of the council, the planning commission, and the FHCA. We're making some progress in terms of just information gathering and finding people that could help us as consultants with exploring the business area and what the best direction would be. I'm having a meeting today with our county mayor and some people from Connect and a professor at CNU who is going to enlist, our project as a group project for one of the graduate classes at CNU. So we'll get some free consultant services in that way. We also, Barbara and I came up with a series of questions for another consultant that one of the members of the planning commission, Steve Luther, recommended, who was also gonna offer some information in kind. So we're moving along, while we wait for the feasibility study to get started and get some reports. So I just wanted to share that with all of you. I thought it was pretty exciting. I mean, this is gonna take a while, but there's some momentum going right now and I'd like to keep it going. So that's all I have to report, Madam President.
Thank you, Mr. DeCrosta. Moving on then to Public Works, Mr. Fosbrink.
No motions to bring forth, other than general report. And Mr. Brett, do you have anything that you need to highlight for the engineer report for public work?
Just an update on the schedule, for the roads. The speed humps, they have 1 day of work to do on those. When we get a break in the weather, they will complete those. There is an asphalt plant staying open all winter, for utility work, things like that. So in December, they will get those completed and they're starting to cater demolition tomorrow. I know by tonight, the excavator is in there, so that was good news that, they're gonna move on. So the rest of the road program, much less small stuff that, so you'll have a bill for the work that's been completed, will come in over the next week or so.
Any questions? Okay, that's all. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Fosbrink. Moving on then, Public Safety, Mr. Bioki.
Thank you. I'm recommending moving forward with the approval of the police services contract renewal with Chalfont Borough. Everyone, I think previously received a copy of that. And the only changes made, there were some incremental increases in the costs under the charge.
No questions or comments?
And then I just want to just touch on what Mr. Brett mentioned about the speed hump replacement. We still have even though the asphalt plants are open, there is a limit on the temperature. It has to be at least 40 degrees air temperature and road temperature as well. So unless that comes up, we're not going to be able to put speed humps in. If we don't put speed humps in, we've already removed the speed humps on Fairfax. And there's been some chatter about that already. So if we come into a situation where we cannot put those speed humps in this winter, we're going to have to look at buying more material to replace the temporary speed humps. That's all I have.
So there was no additional engineers report with that one then? You covered it?
No, that's all we had. I did have one item, just as an update. The speed signs, final location are installed. We sent in an amendment to that permit, because they had to be moved, based on utilities, things like that. The department was good and didn't make us resubmit. They said, once they're installed, just submit an as-built permit. So then that'll be on record that you do have a permit on hand for that. So, but that one is good. So that should be good.
Yeah.
Thank you very much then. Moving on then, is there any old business other than the 2026 budget discussion? I've asked Mr. Abrams to, there's only going to be a few suggested changes. But I'd like that to be visible on the screen for everybody. But first I wanted to start off by thanking everyone. It has been a long haul, and thanking Mr. Abrams for all your help getting our figures straight. and for all of council and the mayor for your suggestions, but especially for Mr. Fosbrink and Ms. Lewis coming in, replacing people, and being the chair of finance couldn't have been easy. So I have to say thank you very, very much to you all. But what I wanted to say is I think we've learned a lot in working together. We started too late, we all agreed, but we talked very nicely and managed to get some things straightened out. I wanted to just get my notes here. It was also suggested that we have to start this earlier with getting input from the different committees. Now, the one thing we really didn't look at was the Excel file for capital plan. And I know you're all hoping to God that I don't bring that up now, all the specifics, and I'm not going to. But what I would like to point out is the difference between the general fund and the capital fund is the general fund is for our day-to-day operations and for larger projects, things that we need to look at, more costly and long-term projects is what I think the capital budget should be part of. Now, the Excel spreadsheet is out there in the SharePoint folder. So for next year, we don't have to be looking at it anymore. This year we'll have a new console. But there are a couple of things that I would like to bring up. And that is in our general fund right now, there's a pool maintenance, which the change was 14,000 to 25,000. And the little note says, we need to put money aside for different work. When I talked to Mr. Abrams, he explained that we'll need a pool liner and some additional things. Did you care to add anything more to that? What?
No, just that, well, yes, the pool liner is one of those that is an expensive one-shot cost. It's a concrete liner. Yeah, but every
Plastic liner.
no, it's the concrete or stucco liner that they use, which means they have to tear it out and re-pour it or shoot it, whatever they do.
It's like the outer light.
Yeah, and that's a 10 to 15 year usual cycle. 15 years if you're lucky. The standard is 10. We're we're nearing the 10-year mark, if not at the 10-year mark in 2026. So that's why the recommendation is because that is usually about a 6-figure job that we start prepping for it.
Okay, see, that is my point. This, I feel, if everyone agrees, this should be part of the capital budget. It's a long-range plan. If we're saving for it every year, what I'm asking is we remove it from the general fund and put it to the capital fund. Are there any objections or thoughts on that? We're supposed to have the committees looking at this. We can't save money in the general fund for later. That's my point. Let's move this item out. And a lot of these figures were, I assuming, guessing on. Yes, Mr. Baker.
So from an accounting perspective here, which I did a bachelor's in accounting, I am not a CPA, did not feel that horrible awful. If we're going to move it out of the out of the general fund to the capital fund, which I would agree with in principle, we need to match that with revenue that is also coming from the same revenue sources that from the general fund in that case, I think. So my concern is that if we simply remove it from the general fund now, we need to also actually put our money where our mouth is basically, and move some of that money that is, I think, coming from the property tax and or income tax and the general fund revenues basically, so that we actually have it accounted for, because otherwise it just becomes a wish list again. And I think our capital fund being a wish list, is that issue that we need to kind of escape from if we're gonna properly establish it, which again, in principle, 100% agree with us. Moving that on is something we should be saving for and capitalizing.
Well, I agree with you there. I didn't want to go into a lot since we've been talking about this budget, and I know I didn't want to go into particulars, but you see, that would have been something for right in the beginning of the year, I'm thinking. Hit the ground running, the committees. We have the solar fund, the one time, correct?
Mhm.
Okay, now that's a sizable amount, and that would be something, when people look, like when I looked in the capital plan right now, there's a lot of things in there that are listed that actually have been applied for with grants. A lot of the recreation things, and that's another resource when the committees start looking and say, hey, we need this, could a grant help us? But like this expense, I would expect whomever is the chair of borough property to say, I would like some money set aside from this solar fund for this in the capital budget. Because it is a necessity. That was my thought with this, so I agree with that totally. There are other expenses in there that I think we should look at. But that was my point. We have to start establishing money for this.
What is the balance of the capital fund right now?
It's currently about 29,000.
20.
Seth, do you have those things that we
Yep.
work on? So after Seth and I, just to help, because I remember, sorry, I remember our last discussion. Joe, you in particular were asking about the balances of the different funds. So Seth and I worked through to model out what they were. This is the treasurer's report from October, which is the most recent one. What they would be at the end of the year, ballpark. And that's what you see here, and I'm sorry, it's smaller font. I just wanted to fit it on one page.
Okay, so then can you explain to us where you said it was like 29,000? Where is that?
On the right-hand side of the page, about halfway down, it says capital fund.
Oh, yes, I see. Thank you so much.
Yeah, this was too, I put lines on it and it was too hard to read, so I was looking at.
Nice job.
This is helpful.
That was an
Yeah.
hour and change of work
The
between
other
the two of us.
This unrestricted, on the left,
Mhm.
general fund, that's not a total general fund now.
On the left, it is.
So what we did there is, as of the end of October. There was about 427,000 in the account with an anticipated revenue of 743. With the anticipated expenses that left a negative of 164,503.64. Which we then showed as a transfer out of the reserve account to balance it. That's why it ends up being zero. Because the bills for November and December are greater than the anticipated revenue for November and December. And so in order to meet our expense obligations, we had to take 164,000 out of unrestricted. You know what I mean, to model that balance.
Yeah. This is just what's remaining for the rest of the year. in each of these areas, right?
Yeah, like the farthest right column where it says year-end balance.
Yeah.
That's what. If these things pan out, showing little bits of revenue from interest and other things, and that's what the notes are about. That's what we'll have at the end of the year,
Gotcha.
totaling a little over 3 million in all accounts.
Okay, so where will, we put the solar, when we get that monies?
So that's a decision that council, yeah, as I've stated, needs to make. And I do concur that, and I believe Mr. Baoki's brought this up. It's been brought up in other various discussions, but honestly, whether it be the money that we have that is now fungible from the solar replacement, or the solar monies that we're anticipating from the IRS, that those can and should be used for one-time expenses such as funding items out of the capital budget, which as of right now, we have not made any contributions to the capital fund in years. So an infusion of 400,000 to help fund some of these things is absolutely the proper way to use these monies when you look at the best practices.
Yes, exactly. And I think, it might be fair to also, depending on when we get this money, just wait for a while and then decide in case we have any emergencies. But that's up to all of council. But that's my point. We have that money coming in, so this could help out, but that's for council to decide. So back to my original point, I'm asking then that this 25,000 be moved into, and do we know, or we're just using this as a guess on what we'll need eventually for the liner, is that right?
The liner, just in doing these searches, what it costs based on the square footage, and I don't have the numbers in front of me, but it was north of $100,000. It wasn't the $650,000 or $700,000 I think we spent the last time there was a leak, but
Yeah, that was a way bigger thing.
yeah.
But there will be other anticipated items coming up. That's why I hope people start really looking at the capital budget and our capital fund sheet and start really moving forward with it from the committee standpoint. So are we okay with this idea of moving the 25,000 and putting it into a capital plan budget?
Can I ask a question? I'm just a
Certainly.
I'm a little confused about it. The 25,000 that's in the solar fund is there. And it's supposed to be, I thought it was supposed to be dedicated to like upkeep of the solar panels on this building. Is that not correct, or? All right, so.
The money that was originally in the solar fund that was created in 2017 and that council had put away for about 2 to 3 years was money to purchase the panels. Council in 2025, as part of the budget, opted to purchase the panels out of the building fund, which is restricted for capital investments, which then freed up because there was no separate full-on recognized restriction placed on the money that was quote unquote called the solar fund. It was never actually a fund and was always considered part of the general fund. So that just freed it up.
Was it just a line item?
Yeah.
Okay.
Does that answer your question? Okay.
Can I ask a question, does that mind?
Sure.
This 187,000 looks like we're gonna have a balance of that this year, correct?
Yes, I will caveat that when Ms. Lewis and I worked on this, we pulled together 2 months worth of estimates, or because we didn't have final numbers in about an hour. So these are fairly ballpark. Yeah.
My understanding is that we can move that into reserves, we can move it into the capital funds. I mean, should we discuss that now in terms of you know, how, you know, if we're gonna have this surplus, should we start putting our money where our mouth is literally? And, you know, put it into, you know, use some of it for a capital fund and some of it for reserve. And whatever the percentages are, we can decide, you know, half, 2/3, a third, you know, and again, we won't do that until we know what it is.
Yeah. I would recommend that take place closer to the actual quote unquote budgeting season.
Sure.
Just because if we move it on January 1st, we're gonna have to pull it back as a loan to ourselves anyway.
Right.
So doing the double switch
After-
doesn't make sense. And
Yeah,
I just want
Yeah.
to bring it up so we don't forget to think about.
good
that.
point. Mhm.
Okay, thank you.
And as we're thinking ahead on that, it occurred to me because we mentioned that 200 some odd thousand, and plus we've mentioned the money that may be coming in from the IRS.
Mhm.
Just remember, we have to, that $180,000 balance also has to cover those expenses that will happen in January.
In the
February,
beginning,
March.
right.
Yeah. Oh, Mr. Bacon.
I clarify something for myself and everybody, when we're saying year-end balance here, we are referring to December 31st of 2025, correct?
Correct.
Yeah, so.
It's not June of next year.
Next year is before we're gonna have a big one, which I'm curious, what is our actual revenue coming from for the general fund in November and December?
That's 743.
Yeah,
some of that comes from RAD, because remember, that's 2 months that we're anticipating, even though we've gotten November's already. So some of those numbers are real, but as an example, RAD should be about $50,000 to $55,000 over that 2-month period. Real estate transfer tax should be about 30 to 40,000 over that 2-month period. We do continue to get delinquent taxes and regular taxes in, as well as the monthly fee from Chalfont for the services that we are still providing. That's about another $12,000 a month. And all of those gradual pieces do add up.
and
And there's also, yeah, and there's also a significant amount in the winter contract from the state, which it's in the budget here. I can't remember off the top what it is. But that's somewhere, I believe, around 20, 30,000. Plus, we also rates are still pretty good, so we are still getting a decent amount from interest on the bank, looking at 10 to 15,000.
So now that it appears we're flush. Back to my flush. Can we pull the 25,000 out of the general? fund?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, does anyone have any objection?
No.
Can we leave some money in there in case we do need to do other caulking or other repairs as opposed to bringing it down to zero?
Well, we're gonna have that's gonna be all moved into, oh wait, well, how much would caulking be?
Well, this year we spent about $14,000. I was hoping to keep around 10,000.
Well, we have other pool expenses, you know, like you have this, I'm trying to look at this. This is for what? Landscaping or maintenance and repair?
Landscaping is currently at 5,000. We've been spending, we budgeted 5,000 pretty consistently the past couple of years. This past year we spent 3,800. That can probably, that could possibly come down a little bit.
Well, I thought we were keeping 25,000 for a pool liner. Now, then it should have been more money. So I suggest we just take the 25 out. Because we don't know if we're gonna have 14,000 in this expense.
Well, we could just take it out of the capital fund if we need it, right?
Yes.
Or move it, yeah.
Yeah.
But if we're moved, so I just wanna understand what you're proposing, because it wouldn't then change the bottom line of this budget. It would simply move the 25,000 from this line item down lower as a transfer to the capital fund. Is that? what
Yes.
you're- Okay.
Yes, it's just,
You
it's
just-
taking
I
it
get
out of the
I just
general
wanted to
fund.
make sure I understood.
Yeah, day-to-day operations, the liner, I don't think is a consideration. And again, you really need to look at that capital plan. So in my last item that I wanted to bring up was, okay, so I guess we're okay with that. And you'll move that into the other
Yep.
one? Okay, are we zeroing it out up here?
Yeah, I'm not sure why it's not automatically doing it. But
Okay, but we know
yeah.
it's gonna happen.
Yep, and as Ms. Lewis said, it doesn't change the bottom line. We just shifted where it's going at this point.
Well, then where did it go? It's not part of the general fund anymore.
It's down at the bottom of, line, it should be down on line 322.
Why would it be put
Transfer.
there?
Because
Oh,
that
it's
says
transfer.
transfer to capital fund.
Okay. Well, that's not an expense.
Well, then where's
It
the
is.
money gonna come from?
The transfer isn't technically an expense
Yeah.
in the accounting.
Yeah,
Okay, so you're telling me that if we take 25,000 out of the top, we're adding it onto the bottom? Oh, I see what you mean, but
it's just
then,
moving.
yeah, okay, I get you. Okay, then the last one is if again, I really wish we would have looked at and talked about, again, the capital budget. In there, the tennis courts have a figure of, I think, 300,000. I don't know what that it comprises. I know some things we talked about, we applied for grants for the tennis area, not just the tennis courts. For instance, the bleachers and, there's like a canopy over top. We talked about fencing, so different things like that. And of course, that was the pool prep. The tennis prep in the court. So, what I'm thinking is, now, what we tabled was closing down the tennis courts, because we don't know who goes there, how many people, okay, we weren't sure. But still, the $11,000 charge is there to fix that when we don't have any hard, we asked to get estimates, none have been provided. I think, was there general talk of a lower fix, some figure? I thought there was.
Yes, at the last meeting, they presented options, which we can probably do some kind of quick and dirty patching for about 5,000, with some extra backer and some concrete that will hold it for a year or two. And those were the part of the three options that were presented to council that you all opted to table at the last meeting. One was closing them entirely, which would result in about a $16,000 savings. One was just removing the tennis lessons, which was a smaller savings. I can pull up the information. And the third one was doing the smaller that 5,000 instead of 11,000 worth of repairs. And then if you wanted to combine it was about $13,000 worth of savings, the smaller repairs and closing the tennis clinic, but leaving the courts open. So you had a choice of saving 16,000 and change by closing the entirety, 11,000 by or 11,000 by just skipping the repairs.
We're just talking
Yeah.
about the 11,000. Okay,
Yep.
if it's only 5,000, then that should be reflected there instead of 11,000. And that means now we have a savings of how much and what's gonna be the change now in our tax rate. Because we're looking at a savings here of what, 30,000? Didn't you tell me that we only needed 32 to hit 0.75?
Madam President, I just have one question. You mentioned the figure of 300,000 on the tennis courts. Was that just the?
Well, it's not the tennis courts, it's the whole tennis area. I don't know what the naming convention is
Yeah.
in the Capitol. We can ask to see that. the capital plan.
But where's that figure coming from?
It's in the capital plan. It's a separate.
In the plan.
Yes, no, it's not listed in the general fund.
The wish list.
Gotcha, okay, sorry about that. Yeah.
Well, we're not gonna treat it that way. We're gonna make sure, especially people on borough property and public works. I noticed there are a lot of things in there, public safety. There's a lot of, so you guys, wherever you end up. Go ahead,
Could I
please.
comment though that I just want to make sure we're not looking at something different because what I hear you saying, but if I'm wrong, you're looking at how do we cut down some, like you mentioned, the 30-some thousand or 30,000 figure to keep the millage at that certain rate.
That is
Right.
correct, yes.
Well, the change about the pool isn't gonna, remember, we're saying we're just moving it from one line to another. If we're gonna follow what Mr. Bacon is saying, that we're actually gonna be putting money into that capital fund.
That's what I'm suggesting. I don't know why
Right.
it was done this way.
Well,
Because I
my,
thought there would be another entry that would zero it out.
I know.
Yes,
But what I'm saying is that the money still has to be raised or come in somewhere, so we're not taking it off of the entire nut of what we need to have. We're just moving it off of this page to a different page. It's not gonna cut out the cost, is what I guess
no,
I'm trying
and we
to say.
we don't have the money, okay?
Right.
This is a proposal, so the money isn't there, but we're gonna move the proposed number into the capital plan. And then whenever we decide how to spend either the 187 or the solars. Right?
Yeah, so no, so this is where so I'm just a lawyer. I'm a VA and accountant, using abacus, and I have to do that. But, so what I thought I heard, the president say was that we were eliminating these, line items or reducing them, right? And that it wasn't so much that we were doing that to put it into the transfer line item.
Oh, yeah.
What we
no.
were doing is, or what was suggested to be done, was that we were simply going to use the funds that are either surplus funds from this year or solar account funds to handle the expenses that we are eliminating. Because if there is pool caulking, there are reserve funds to use. If we are saving 10 or 25,000 a year for the pool liner, we're using it from the surplus fund, the solar funds, etc. That there isn't a transfer. This is completely removing an expense and using surplus funds. So it would result, in my mind, of a reduction of the expenses of the borough. And I think what you're driving at is you want to use these to knock a couple of points off the millage. And that's why I thought I heard.
So probably the correct way to do that is to then go on the revenue side. Add a line item on the revenue side that says transfer from whatever fund, capital fund, whatever, and then leave the expense in the pool expense, right? So like if there's whatever amount of money for caulking and money is gonna be pooled from one of these restricted accounts into the general fund budget, then you show it as revenue and you also show it as an expense, but it then changes the bottom line, which is, I think, what you're going for.
All I was trying to say is, if the thought is that we're taking 50 cents off of today's operations, right? And we're gonna put that on maybe tomorrow or next week's operations, right? That's what a capital budget is for. It might happen later. If we're not gonna account for actually funding it, we're creating ourselves another problem. It's like, I'm taking the 50 cents and putting it in my pocket today, but I'm still gonna spend $1. And then I'm not gonna have the 50 cents later. Am I making, do you remember? It's like
Yeah.
we're not accounting for the money per se. We're trying to get it off today's budget for use later, but I just don't want to change our pockets.
Okay, but we have questions. Okay, Mr.
Okay,
Bianco.
okay. Let's just talk about moving that, and maybe we're gonna spend the money, or maybe we're not gonna spend the money, just needs to go in a different bucket. We should be looking at what the capital fund is and what the capital plan is, and showing that on the screen and deciding what we're gonna spend money on, or not spend money on. And use those reserves, as you said before, not the reserves, but the money that's going to be coming in to possibly pay for some of that stuff. And look at the stuff that we absolutely do not need. So to me, this is, we're talking about things that are maybe and not real items that we need to fund. That's the way I'm looking at it.
So.
Wait,
a
Mr. Bacon, I'm sorry, I looked this way first. I'll look up
No,
that
it's fine,
way.
Mrs. Head. It's fine.
And just the strategic comment here, that we are talking about a capital fund. Which is all said and good, but every single thing that I've heard us mention for that is something that is really, it will be capitalized, and expensive depreciation would be far more understandable, like regular financial accounting world compared to government accounting. But they're not like some truly one-time things. We've been talking about maintenance for the pool on a 10 to 15 year cycle, but a repeating cycle. We've been talking at various points about things like public works trucks, which have a pretty predictable, definite life. I want us to be careful when considering any sort of one-time windfall or use for the capital budget, because while we are putting these things aside for bigger purchases, it's a train that's always going to be rolling. So we need to have a like sustainable, really long-term view on that, or we're gonna find ourselves running short.
Oh, I agree totally, and I expect people to be fiscally responsible and not just start dreaming. Ms. Lewis,
So just, because I'm new and I'm learning, right? So,
well, I'm no accountant either.
no, it's not about accounting, it's just, so there is a spreadsheet that is on SharePoint
Mm-hmm,
that is capital expense recommendations.
yes.
And
Do you want
the
it on the
$300,000
screen?
that you mentioned for the tennis court renovation is proposed for 2027. In that document, is that what you're talking about?
What I'm saying is there's a line item in there for the whole tennis court area.
Yeah,
Okay.
that's there for 2027.
Yes, but regardless, we're not gonna spend $300,000 in 2027. The point is, this is what we should look at for what we're moving forward on. And I don't know why there's nothing in there for next year. Who decided that? There's some, but was this from council? Like who decided in 2027, or was this the existing plan that we're just adding on to? I don't know.
I can't answer that.
Well, regardless, now that we have it up on the screen, so I'm looking at some of these expenses and, okay, like the lounge chairs, umbrella, a lot of that stuff has already been applied for with a grant. Now, I know there's notes across at different, columns, but I don't know if that's noted. But this is the stuff that we have to look at and decide. And I didn't want to look at it now, but since it's up on the screen, I'm just suggesting, because tonight's our last night to decide what the tax raise is gonna be. We vote on it in a couple of weeks, and I'm looking for 2 ways to get that down, closer to 0.75. That was my point with these 2 items. This is additional stuff. So did people want to start talking about this? Wait, I think Ms. Lewis had her hand.
So different from that, I think one of the things that I don't see reflected in the budget as it stands now is sufficient revenue to be able to handle the ongoing expenses that are coming down the pipe. We got recently, LSSE provided us with the updated road scoring. Right, now granted, the total amount for that is like 16 million, but that's everything. But the top three, the ones, twos, and threes, which are the really bad roads, cost $1.2 million. We have, I don't even know if it's reflected here, but we're not accounting for that. And additionally, during our public works meeting, we spent a little bit of time, and I learned about the entanglement of the sewer lines that are happening around the avenues. That, yes, we can apply for grant funds, but we're not gonna, the total price tag to untangle those critical lines for our residents is $5 million.
That's been discussed already at council.
But it's not accounted for in the budget. And my concern is that while I am fine to spend the time to, cut things down, 10,000 here, 15,000 here, what we're not discussing is how we are gonna pay for those very big ticket items. I mean, we just awarded a contract for $750,000, like road work, sewer work is not 10,000, 15,000, it's hundreds and hundreds of thousands of dollars. And my concern is that the millage rate that you're striving for does not produce enough revenue for us to manage our roads and our sewers.
Well, what I'd like to point out, when you look at the roads, the all roads, okay, those ones and twos, I know there's one there. Those twos, and I believe into some of the threes, are alleys. Alleys were never paved in the borough except starting 3 years ago. So the people that live on these, that it's now a two, they lived on them that way forever. People would come to council meetings and say, I'd like to get my road repaired. We don't do alleys. One lady came in with a letter from the post office that said, I'm no longer delivering mail to your house because of the road. So our residents have been patient. They know. We don't have the money to do all this, but those alleys have never been done. So it's going to look worse in the beginning. You should have seen it when we started. All the alleys. And we can't afford to do all of them. Now with the sewers and that 5 million, Mr. Brett, you had talked about some of the consequences would be we would get fined. Would we get fined $5 million? Have you ever heard of anybody being fined for the total amount? Or what would be if the worst consequence I heard is that we're fined?
Well,
Could you explain that to us?
Yeah, these are part of the consent order with Allegheny County.
Mm-hmm.
So there's penalties involved with those. But if you don't comply over a time period of the consent order, then you get compelled to comply. So you'll get a court order in the end. It escalates. So if you think back 20 years ago, that's where Elk was singing about it. And they ended up with the Justice Department. And then the Justice Department came in and said, you will. When they do that, cost goes from 5 million to 5 plus. It gets incredibly expensive for the community. So the method that all the 83 communities are utilizing is you comply, get the work done. And that's why You apply for Borough money, you've been successful there. All of your grants, and as long as you're picking away at it, they'll give you time to complete it. But it has to be part of your program in order to apply, because you're in what they call consent order 2 right now. You're going to win the consent order 3. 3 years from now, they're going to start negotiating it. It's going to have more requirements that you have to comply with. So it's one of those things you have to always keep after, have it in your capital plan, and have a plan to get it done over a period of 5 years, plus or minus, something like that. So the issue was these 24 manholes, nobody addressed them for 20 years. And then when they were discovered, they needed to come off the way they're currently constructed. Somebody thought 100 years ago they were saving money, and instead it's very costly to untangle how these manholes are constructed. So
Can you also explain to the rest of council what you explained to us in terms of the condition of those lines, the risk of collapse?
Yeah.
The proximity to the water lines, and why we can't continue to kick the can down the road.
yeah,
We have discussed this already too previously, but
yeah,
please tell us again.
yeah. Avenue B was like a microcosm of what the rest of that area is, which is, as you recall, the water line, 100 years old. So when you went to these streets and work on the sanitary lines, the sanitary and storm lines are well below the water lines. So we have found that the water lines need to be replaced while we're in there. The gas company's already been in a lot of these areas, replacing lines, but then you also have to untangle the storm sewer and the sanitary sewer. Both of those are almost 100 years old. So when we work on one thing, it's like a domino effect, where then the storm sewer needs repaired, and then the sanitary sewer needs repaired. While we're in there, the water lines, we're pushing on them to get their water lines replaced at the same time, so that when you restore the surface, we're not back in there a year or 2 later to start with a newly paved road. So all these pieces gotta go together in order to have reliable infrastructure for the community that is the least disruptive as we can. You can't break the bank by doing all this work at once. But over the last 3 years, you've been working on a comprehensive plan on each one of those areas: stormwater, sanitary sewers, and then also the road paving. So they need to gel together into a good capital place.
Well, I know that you had, did you want to talk?
I just have a question on that. So, I mean, I don't think we're anywhere near being out of compliance with our upkeep, right? Of the storm sewers, and so like the SSOs and the CSOs, for instance, right?
Yeah,
We have been televising, we have been repairing, and we have been doing that for like the last 25 years.
yeah, it's not the O&M that's the issue. These manholes end up being combined manholes in a separate system.
Correct. So, no, I mean, if we're not at least 90% compliant in terms of where our manholes are, tracking them, et cetera, we're talking about 5 to 10% probably relative to all the manholes that we have marked, correct?
Yeah, you're talking about 24 out of the whole community.
Exactly.
But those 24, the reason probably nobody ever addressed them is the cost of addressing it is extremely high.
Well, how many of those were actually hit?
There's 24 that we found after we became the engineer.
Correct, but my point was that it's not like they were actually hidden and kind of found them after the fact, right, from some of the tracking that we did.
Somebody at some point went in and put brick over top of
Right, and buried.
Yeah,
Essentially.
so you couldn't see them, and
Correct.
each one is a little different character.
Right.
With like the ones on Avenue D, it's very hard when you get into manholes to actually see this little sliver. When I look down in it, 14 feet below you is the actual sanitary.
So I guess what my point is that I don't know that we would necessarily be at high risk for fines, et cetera, because really the body of work points toward, we have been doing everything in our power within reason to stay compliant with those requirements of the. I guess this really flows out from the feds, right? The state and the county is basically enforced that a local law.
Yeah, and everybody has the same consent order, that each one of these things, and some of them have extremely high costs. That you're not allowed to have in separate systems, stormwater going into, you fall into that category, so. It's one of those things where you have to have a plan, pick away at it, so that you can stay in compliance. And have a target to get to, so you're not the highest on the list. But as the consent orders go from one to the other, you'll get higher. It's like stormwater. And I mentioned that. So stormwater 14 years ago started with DEP was giving communities 45 days that would come out and do inspections. So now we're getting calls today. The department's gonna start coming out 3 days later. And they've already told us that we're educating our communities on this. They're gonna come out and review public works. They're gonna come out and review what you've done for your MS4 permit, and it's going to go from educational to punitive, which means you'll end up getting fines if you don't keep up with your storm sewer, your maintenance, repairs, all that stuff. So it's really hard to gauge with the department and EPA when it goes from being educational to becoming punitive, because all the orders have fines. The magnitude of it is the 5 million. Know that if you went non-compliant, it can get to where they bring the Justice Department in through the EPA. It can be very, very expensive for the communities. Well in excess of 5 million. So
Yeah, so I mean, everybody kind of points to Penn Hills. And it's possible, like, here's what could happen,
yes,
where they're paying astronomical amounts right now.
ask the national, because that was a horrible situation.
Correct.
That people didn't think they're ever gonna get fined. And that is a very sad situation.
Yeah, they call it a law. They didn't blink.
Mr. Bacon?
Thinking maybe I can steer us back into the kind of context of what we're talking about here. Because we did have a big sewer rate increase. I think it was either, well, less than no more than last year.
Last year, yeah.
And that is, what should be funding that sewer fund, like we should have that separate from the general fund, it should
It
be
is,
a
yeah.
different conversation. And in my opinion, we all voted on that big increase with partly, I mean, we talked about. But that was, we stamped that pretty quickly, because, this is sewer, what are you gonna do? The road millage, where we've been doing 1 mil, okay, that was passed, Frank off to the side real quick, if you can remember when it was passed, then, we're thinking at least 10, 15 years ago.
I think it was
12
like,
years
I think
ago.
it was like 2007.
2007, so 1 mil gets a lot less than this. So we've been actually accomplishing less and less and less every year for the last almost 12 years with the 1 mil. So that's something that, like, it's not sustainable. We're gonna have to reevaluate that.
That needs to be in the capital plan too, additional,
Or however we decide to do it.
whatever we want, yeah.
But my point being that what the finance committee is in favor of, to have some sort of money to allocate to that capital plan, like, there's a lot that can and should be in there. And I don't think we're actually getting appropriately started on it to make up for the last one, regardless of what we're proposing. But we're talking about, if you look at someone's overall property taxes, we're talking about a less than 1% difference.
What does that amount to on $100,000? Do you know?
If we're talking, well, I'm talking about the whole property tax, figure what you think, because most of it's the
I'm
school.
talking
district.
about our real estate.
We all, we can gripe about that all day.
Mhm.
Okay, our school district is what, 28 mils right now, something like that. Okay. 1% of that is 1/4 of income, basically. We're wanting to make sure we have at least that much wiggle room to plan for the future, compared to like absolutely zeroing it out in the years here. It's not a lot in the big picture, but as far as having something we wish to plan for, as we come up with a more comprehensive and thought through capital budget for the future, it makes a difference when you have something that you're starting to put in there to have some flexibility. So that's the context I want to just back off with. Truly just general funding, we're not asking for a huge amount,
in the big picture, what people pay for residents, it's something that has some pushing. Given everything we've discussed with capital budget, I think is very important for planning for the future.
Mr. DeBronson?
Last year at this time, at this meeting, I believe, we decided on what we were going to vote on for the budget at the next business meeting, so we got a sense of what people were thinking. So we could be, put this as the motion on. And I think, and like you've been doing so much work with the finance committee and looking at all of the lines and being sure, but I fear that, some of these small expenses aren't really gonna move us in any kind of major direction in terms of how I've been thinking of the mills, shouldn't we just kind of get and do a litmus test now to see where we stand? And what direction that's gonna go in, so we don't keep on discussing and saying things over and over.
All I wanted to talk about was two expenses. I can't help it. Everybody else wants to talk about. All right, so with the change, Mr. Abrams, can you tell us now where we are
Yes,
with the tax rate?
with the tax rate at 9.5 mils at the 0.75 increase, and with the removal of all $25,000 from the pool maintenance, as well as as President Martin and I have discussed, the arborist fee was reduced by $10,000. I did have to make a couple other changes for the chief's police vehicle to account for bringing the money in from the savings the council had approved. And that's the stuff that Ms. Lewis was talking about in and out. But the end number.
K-9 police.
Yeah, and the donation.
Mhm.
The end is right now with the changes that we've made, we are $11,000 shy. I will just, it's been stated and I will restate it. These do not put, other than the funds that we're talking about that are currently like the solar that are aside, these do not put any money away for additional paving or anything else for
All I
capital.
wanna know
And
is, what's the tax rate now with these changes?
tax rate is a 0.75 increase at 9.5 for 2026.
Okay,
And,
so
and you're showing an
what is that?
$11,000.
A 0.75 raise this year, is that
Yes,
what you
ma'am.
just said? Okay, so did that satisfy what you were asking, Joe?
Well, no, I guess what I'm asking is where do each of us stand on this? I think the argument could be made, we're at 0.75, with somewhat of a balanced budget, but what kind of wiggle room do we want?
Well, do you want to just start with Mr. Bacon? Is everything?
Well, hold on a second, because I just want to address that, I'm happy to cut to the chase here.
Mhm.
You know what I mean, and let's just decide, but let's just review that what we began talking about several months ago was 1.25. We reduced that down to 1. And now we're trying to reduce it down to 0.75. Agreed, that's fine, but it feels like we're saying even at 0.75, I see nothing up there that says transfer to capital fund. So we're not budgeting to deal with the capital fund. So I would just suggest is could we all meet in the middle at 1? At the full 1 instead of the.
Wait, before you talk, Ms. Lewis. I wanted to address something back to, Mr. Brett. So, and with the roads, you had mentioned that we're trying to work with, to get those 100-year-old sewers ready. And we've been working with the company, asking them, will you replace those sewers before we pave? Yeah, so we've been addressing a lot of the issues with our sewers. Don't think that we haven't been doing anything. Last year, we were at 1.5 and we got down to 0.75. I see us here with, I don't want to say extra money, but we're not hurting. So that's
We're
my
not
point.
planning for the millions of dollars in investments that we have to make that.
Well, we don't have to make them all next year. That's the
No,
point.
but if we're gonna try to raise $10 million over 10 years. And we're not addressing putting any money away.
Well, we haven't even looked at it. So why didn't the finance committee bring this up before tonight? I mean, there's the point. Like, we're now arguing about something. It's 8:15. We've been doing this since when? Okay.
Then let's take a vote on what we're gonna do.
Ms. Lewis?
I wanna just help us ground in what 1 mil means, because you asked the question. 1 mil per $100,000 is $100. So 0.25 is, $25 of additional tax for our residents. But I think, respectfully, I think Finance Committee has brought these things to the table. I mean, I can say personally, I've talked about this each time, so this isn't the first time tonight that these things have been brought up.
Well, I just meant, we're not hearing that the reason why we have to keep this at the point, at the one, is because we've thoroughly looked at this and decided how we're gonna move forward. What I remembered is, all we talked about was that the committees were gonna start taking a more active role. So if I said something out of line, I take it back. My apologies. So do we want to go and do what we want to hear? Okay?
I'm happy to start, you know how I felt about this last year,
Mhm.
as the at the time majority of finance council did. I recommend, I think unanimous agreement with finance council, I think a 1.25 increase is wise. I feel of a 1 mil increase is acceptable with us finally having the first truly expenses and revenue balanced budget in many years. But I think we're going to having a similar conversation pretty soon if we do one. So that's our thing.
Mr. Bianchi,
75.
One,
given that we have so much extra revenue here, we have a lot in our bank accounts. I can't see saddling our residents with any more expenses than we have to. So I'm going with 0.75.
I agree with Mr. Bacon. I think that we do need to make plans for the future, but I'm willing to compromise at one.
I'm gonna go, excuse me, 0.75.
I agree with Mr. Bacon. I don't think 0.75 adequately balances our budget. And I think it sets us up for not having enough revenue to meet our obligations to our residents.
so where are you?
I prefer 1.25. I think that's the responsible thing to do, but I would accept a 1 mil increase, but nothing less.
Okay, so does anybody have anything more to say on this? I always look at you first, Ian. Mr.
Might I
Forrest.
say, and since I will not be here, I do think that it does require us all saying, or you all saying, this needs to be re-examined in January. I do think there is work that can be done to tighten up a lot of this. So that we can be allocating the money into a long-term capital plan.
Believe me, if I wanted to keep talking, I could get a lot more shaved off, because I see all kind of.
I believe that there's room to make those things, but I also agree with Mr. DeCrosta that it's kind of like pinching the pennies, so let's just move on and reopen in January.
So how would we like to put the motion on the agenda for the business meeting?
At 0.75. It's not my decision, okay? You had 4. Do you want it? We had 3 people for 0.75. What do the other 4 want to say?
I think we were all clear that 3 recommend 1.25, but are willing to compromise with 1. You got it. We have.
Can you just say a figure?
So, yeah, we have 4 votes for 1.
Okay, everybody okay?
Yes, I'm fine with that. Let's go with 1. And as a group, there was only 1 seat to change here. We will just have to hope that we can honestly start to address, well, things I heard. I want to be very careful not to sound like I'm blaming, because I am not. But I heard so many very complex things, like look, maybe we need $5 million for the roads or whatever for this and the tennis courts, I gotta bring it.
Yeah.
And it's our duty in February to start analyzing that, we can't do everything. And at some point, this will be arbitrary, but let's make that decision in May or June. And then we can come in and go, okay, to get there, next year we have to increase, heaven knows what.
Mhm.
The reason I was pushing so much for the 0.75 was because I'd rather have seen this increase gradually over the years. But I will go with 1.1.
Mr. Beatty, you changed your mind.
I think we all take this very seriously, that we have a serious mandate to come up with a real long-term capital budget plan early next year. I think we can all, go team on that.
Well, and we need to, instead of wish list, I can remember the windows for the Public Works garage. I think Jimmy had it at $30,000. That was the wish list. It came in at 8. We need to get solid information, which we don't have for a lot of these that's going on for even next year. So I think we'll end up with another surplus. Okay, ready? Anybody else? I'm gonna call an end here unless there's more.
You want me to? Did we technically move on to our business?
I already put it in. It's usually the same.
Did we? I thought we already got through that. Is there any new business? I thought we already passed that. Okay, is there new business? I'm waiting with the gavel. Anybody? Okay, then I move to adjourn the meeting by acclamation. Are there any objections? Okay, meeting's adjourned. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.